Hey everyone! The purpose of this video is to give you an introduction to Lesson 2.1, Properties of Water. Okay, at this point, you should have already completed 2.0, Life's Origins Pretest, as the real introduction to this entire module. And so now what we're doing is going into the first lesson, Properties of Water. Okay, so go ahead and open the lesson, Properties of Water. Okay, and like with every lesson that we have, you want to scroll all the way down to the bottom, open up the Properties of Water Biology notebook. Once you click on the link, you are going to be prompted to open this as a Word document. If you don't want to use Word, that's okay. Go over to our supplemental website that I've created for you. Looks like this. Click on Module 2, scroll on down, and there's the biology notebook for properties of water, if it shows up. So there's our biology notebook. Feel free to open that up and you can make a copy of that for yourself. And then you can record and document notes here. So you'll see some of the information that you're going to read and learn about. First, some chemical bonding, ionic and covalent bonding, hydrogen bonding, and then you'll get into the actual properties of water. Cohesion, adhesion, surface tension, capillary action, what happens when water freezes, density, water being a universal solvent. You'll learn some things about pH, some ions, specific heat, and heat of vaporization, boiling point, and then you have a couple of sample questions by the time you get through the full lesson. Okay, so we're going to go back to the first slide here. Okay, so we're going to go back to the first slide here. Sorry if there was a little glitch in my video. Okay, so once you have your notes open and ready to start recording, let's go back to the beginning of lesson 2.1 and start learning. So make sure you read through everything. If there's videos or interactives, make sure you click on those. Once you're done reading through that first slide, documenting any sort of information that you can on your notes, then let's go on to the next slide. If you take a look here at the top of the lesson, there are 5 slides in lesson 2.1. Okay, so click on next. Now we're getting into more of those actual properties of water. You'll talk more about those chemical bonds, and some of those you may already know, the ionic bonding and covalent bonding. Work through that little interactive there, and so on. Once you're done with that, continue on to the next. Here are some more properties of water called cohesion, adhesion, surface tension, and capillary action. So make sure that you're clicking through all of those and again documenting any important information. So now you may have realized how important those notes are, because remember, you are allowed to use your notes on any module exam except for the final exam. So it is really important that you're taking notes as you go through each lesson. Okay, you'll learn a little bit about water when it freezes and density of water. And how water is a universal solvent. And again, there's a little interactive with water and salt. Okay, once you're done with that, go on to the next slide. Okay, now here you're going to learn about some pH. Maybe you're a little bit familiar with that from some middle school topics, some middle school content. Okay, now here you're going to get into something called the high specific heat. Okay, this little experiment here is pretty important because what they're going to do is talk about 3 substances, okay, water being one of them. We're going to compare it to alcohol and compare it to oil. And so you can see this student here has 3 pots on a stove, one with oil and a thermometer, one with alcohol and a thermometer, one with water and a thermometer. Okay, and they're posing a question here. If these 3 substances are given the same amount of heat, which one will heat up to 60 degrees Celsius the fastest, and which one will take the longest? Okay, and so this is a little experiment. Turn on the burners and test your predictions. Okay, so let's keep that in mind when we get to the next slide. Okay, so continue to read on about heat of vaporization. And then here some of the properties of water are summarized for you. You've got a little matching interactive to work through. Okay, so now we're going to continue on to the final slide of the lesson. Okay, so we've got a little summary on the properties of water, and now here's our assignment. Okay, this assignment is another lab report. Now this one is a little bit different in the fact that you are actually doing this lab. And you might be thinking, how am I supposed to be doing a lab at home? How can I do this? Or I'm sitting in a classroom right now, I don't have any materials in my classroom, and I'm not sure what to do. Okay, so this lab, it is simple, and you get to choose what to do. This lab could be as simple as maybe you're going to do the exact lab that was on the previous slide with the student and the 3 pots, one with oil, one with water, one with alcohol. Okay, you may choose to do that for this lab. The only difference in this one as compared to lesson 1.1 when we had John with those plants and the fertilizer, John's information was all completely given to you. Okay, here you actually have to do the lab to collect the data yourself. Okay, now you don't have to do the oil, alcohol, water experiment. You might choose to do something else. So, but let's talk about what it is that you are going to, what you're even supposed to be looking for. Okay. It says, for this assignment, you will demonstrate what you have learned about the properties of water by designing and conducting an experiment that examines one of water's properties. Okay, so maybe that property of water you want to examine is that specific heat, like with when the oil and the alcohol was compared to water. Maybe you want to do something else. And there's some examples given to you here at the bottom of this lesson. Maybe you want to see, well, how does adding sugar have an effect on the viscosity of water? How do different materials affect capillary action? How does salt affect the freezing point of water? That's a good one, and that's a really easy one to test. Putting some water in the freezer, 1 tray of water that's just straight up water, 1 tray of water that has salt added to it. Or maybe you could see, how does sugar add the freezing point of water? Maybe how does sugar add the boiling point of water? One urban legend we often hear about is salt helps water boil faster. Well, maybe you want to test that. Does adding salt to water really help it boil faster? Okay, so maybe you want to see how temperature change affects water's cohesion, or how does temperature change affect surface tension. Okay, so it's up to you what you want to test with water. Okay, the scenario that is given here, how does the specific heat of water differ from other substances? This little interactive is all about the oil comparing to alcohol, comparing to water. So there's a procedure here. The dependent and independent variables are listed. Okay, but again, on this one, you're going to have to do the experiment to document some data in a data table, okay? So eventually you'll come up with some conclusions and some applications that you find. Now, so feel free to do the oil, alcohol, water test, or if you want to get real creative, do your own experiment. Okay, as with any lab report, there is a lab report template and a rubric. So you can open up the lab report here if you like. So title, objective, hypothesis, variables, materials, procedure. Now this time you do have to list a procedure. The data and observations, you're going to have to come up with some sort of data table to document the information that you collect throughout the course of the experiment. Conclusion and some questions. Okay. So also remember that template is over here on our website as well. So there's the instructions for this assignment. Here is the template for that assignment. And then you always want to make sure you look at that rubric. And I've been getting several questions from students. How do I do better on these lab reports? What do I need to do? Can I have some suggestions? Okay, I always suggest take a look at the rubric first. What are you expected to do? Everybody wants to get in that master biologist category. You want to try to earn as many points as you can, I hope. So, look at that top category, the 3 points. Read, what do you need to include for that? Need a hypothesis. What do you need in the variables section? Okay, so make sure you look through that grading rubric to find out what you need. And then when you're done writing the lab report, look at that grading rubric again to see, did you really address everything that you need to have there? Okay? Alrighty, so like always, once you're done with the lab report, you're going to go to where the slide where you turn in your work. And if you have a Google Doc, remember there's a big plus sign that you can click on to add your Google Doc. And don't forget to add me with viewing rights. Okay, if you want to add a Microsoft Word document, you can do that as well. And several people have been just copying and pasting their work into the comments box. That gets a little tough when you want to add a data table, but lots of you have done this successfully by adding your work into that comments box. Okay, so like always, let me know what questions you have. If you need some additional ideas on our Google site, I've got a couple of links here for you that might help you. If you don't want to do the water, oil, alcohol experiment, click on these couple of links here, Home Science Tools and the Homeschool Scientist. There's a couple of additional examples there, okay? So good luck on this. Have fun with it. And let me know if you have any questions, okay? Bye, guys.